Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. This morning on Perspectives, I have Mr. Tyrese Hobbs, owner of the Covenant Apparel, here to discuss his background, education, and the inception of the Covenant Apparel. Thank you, Mr. Hobbs, for joining me this morning, and thank you for coming to share your perspective. To start off our first segment, I just want to ask a little bit about your background and education, so just tell me a little bit about Ty.
All right, so I was born and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. Grew up in the Bordeaux area. I graduated from MLK back in 2017, which seems forever ago. But after graduating from high school, I attended the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where I studied entrepreneurship and interior design. And basically, I just did a lot of stuff on campus and stayed involved, put a lot on my plate, just so I can know that I could juggle a lot. But in doing so, I made a lot of connections. I've always wanted to have a clothing brand, but I never knew which direction I wanted to take. And I would say my college years helped kind of shape that for me.
Now tell me about some of the extracurriculars you were into. I noticed you're very humble, which I appreciate, but tell me about some of the organizations that you're a part of.
The one I think you're referencing would be Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And I was initiated back in 2019. So I'm going about 5 years next year. So it's kind of crazy as well, but yeah.
Do you feel like that connections really helped you in terms of pushing your business and kind of learning the way of that?
Yeah, and I would say, like, me personally, like, I joined for, like, the brotherhood and to be able to network on a bigger scale. And I feel like my why, personally, is to impact people. So I feel like joining that fraternity will allow me to do that on a bigger scale, and it aligned with my life principles anyways. So I would say just being around like-minded people definitely helped in that area.
Now tell me about your high school. I want to hear about your adolescent years. What are some of the experiences that kind of shaped the man you are today?
Okay. So I would say it's a lot, actually.
I know. I'm
It's a
trying
lot.
not to get into the Covenant story quite
Yeah.
yet, but I just want to know what has shaped you over the course of these last few years.
So I would say that the main thing that kind of put me out there actually would be an organization called Top Teens of America, actually, which is here local in Nashville. They have like many chapters all across the nation, but I did that. I think I joined that like my sophomore year, and they kind of pushed me to have like more comfort with public speaking and being a leader and different stuff like that. So we did like a lot of community service. We was in a TSU parade, and I did a botillion a couple times.
I did cotillion, so yeah.
So it was a great overall experience. I got to travel with it, go to different cities and states, meet people all across the world, and I would say that's how I got into writing poetry. So that later became an outlet for me, dealing with just life in general. So yeah.
And so I guess I'm gonna jump the gun a bit.
Okay.
I want to get into the beginnings of the Covenant. So I want you to tell me the Covenant story. Tell me first what event or situation kind of inspired the Covenant, and then tell me just how you dealt with it. And I think we'll only have enough room in our first segment for just you telling me what inspired this, but let's get into that first.
Okay, sounds good. So I would say that the main event that kind of led me to even kind of being more interested in clothing would be, like, I feel like I've always been gravitated towards clothing and fashion, but like my mom said, I've been saying that since I was like 4. I don't recall that, but what I can recall is back in like 2013, 2012, I had a big cousin. I'm my only child on my mom's side, so all my cousins are like siblings to me. So I had a big cousin that had passed away. He was killed tragically after he graduated from high school, and he had a hoodie that I just loved. And it said, if you got a hater, tell a hater, get like what you dislike.
And I was get like what you dislike. Right. I like that.
So I was like, that's the coolest hoodie ever. And after he passed, I couldn't find it, and I didn't know where it was. So what I did was recreate it, but I added my own twist. And I went to like custom ink or something, and I said, if you're not living like Ty, you ain't living right. And tell her to get like what you dislike on the back.
And so that's kind of the early beginnings of what would end up being the Covenant Apparel.
Right.
And I like that kind of that story, that background, because you took a sad situation and turned it into a positive.
Right.
And in our second segment, we'll get into actually selling your clothes and the art of being a businessman in America, being a black businessman. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the second segment of Perspectives, where I'll be joined with Tyrese Hobbs to discuss living in your light and the Covenant Apparel. Thank you and welcome to the second segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, you are watching Perspectives and I am host Alana McLaughlin. This morning, I'm joined by Tyrese Hobbs, owner of the Covenant Apparel, to discuss his background, education, and the impact that he wants to have on the Nashville community. And thank you again for joining me, Ty, and thank you for sharing your perspective this morning. In our first segment, we spoke about your early beginnings, you know, from the University of Tennessee in Chattanooga, Martin Luther King High School, different organizations you were involved in, and ultimately losing a family member, which inspired you to eventually create what is now the Covenant Apparel.
Right.
We left off in our first segment about you trying to recreate your cousin's hoodie, the hoodie that you couldn't find. And, you know, you went to a printing company and put some words on a hoodie. But tell me from there, how did words on a hoodie at Custom Ink turn into an actual brand, a lifestyle, community, everything that Covenant is, basically?
Right. So I would say, like, I just got a lot of positive feedback from a lot of classmates, even some of my teachers at the time. They were like, that hoodie is dope. And I was just like, it made me happy. And I always, like, from like being 16, I always wanted to have my own business. I just never really knew how to go about it. So I took a deep dive into the internet, a lot of YouTube, trying to figure out any and everything that I can, trying to find print shops, and I couldn't come up with anything at all. So like what I tried to do is just continue to fill myself with knowledge. And the more that I did that, I was able to, I guess, create like this whole portfolio of just information. I didn't put it to work yet, but I had the knowledge for when I was ready.
Yeah. And so building this knowledge, what was your final push to say, I should apply this knowledge and really go full-fledged with this?
So I tried to do it while I was in school.
at UT?
Yeah, UTC. And I thought about doing partnerships and stuff like that, but I realized that my dream is my dream, and that I can't really expect others to have the same passion towards my dream. So I delayed it even further. And then once I was like, all right, this is enough. Like I've delayed my dream. I've just delayed going for what it is that I truly want long enough. So I would say in 2020, that's when I started doing a lot more research, and I actually decided to create the Covenant Apparel, which had many names prior. I'm taking a slight shift because before I had it like this awkward name, Long Live in Prosperity, and it was just like that don't even ring. It don't
mouthy.
Yeah, I was just like, that's not it. And at the time I was studying the Bible a lot, and I learned about the significance of the rainbow. And with that, that's one of God's first covenants. And the significance of the rainbow is signifying that God won't flood the earth again. And once I learned about that, I was like, wow, that's so powerful. And then also, shortly after, I heard Eric Thomas, he was speaking about covenant versus contract. And covenant is when you make an agreement and like you don't give up when it gets tough. Contract is like, all right, this is what we're doing. If this fails,
it fails.
Yeah. So with that, I was like, okay, that's powerful. And I've always wanted to create a clothing brand, but the market was so saturated. So I had to find something that would separate me from everyone else. So I made an aspirational clothing brand, which ended up being Covenant. So me creating Covenant was me making a covenant to my dreams to not give up when it gets tough, because I'm not gonna always have sunshine days and stuff like that. But who doesn't? It's life. So that's why I created Covenant, to be able to push people to go towards their goals and dreams and create a covenant with yourself. Don't give up.
I love that. That is really awesome. And that actually carries me into my next question. I know that a tagline and a phrase that you use often is "the light is yours."
Correct.
And actually, the title of this episode is "Living in Your Light." And I chose that because I felt that that really embodied what you preach through Covenant, through both the apparel and through the motivational quotes that you share with others. But tell me how you came up with, you are the light, with living in your light, The light is yours, excuse me.
All right. So I would say I came up with the light is yours literally from just brainstorming.
Yeah.
I had like 50 different slogans per se. Like I was just like, okay, I'm gonna find one, and I have to find one that clicks. But I wanted it to be short. I wanted it to be sweet. So I was looking at other brands like, you have what do you have? You have McDonald's, how I'm loving it.
Yeah.
You hear these slogans and know exactly who it is. Nike, just do it. So if you have a tagline that's something that is impactful like that, then people will know you just by your slogan. They don't even have to know the brand or who you are. So that was my mindset when I was trying to choose that. I don't know exactly where it came from. I would say God, I guess, but it popped into my head. I wrote it down along with 48 others, and it just stuck. That was the one.
And to you personally, what does that mean that the light is yours?
The light is yours means to me, that's a great question. I would say that it means that, you can't allow other people to put a damper on your light. So, whatever it is that you want to do in life, you have to do it for yourself. You can't give someone the pen to write your story. You have to write your own story. So that's what that means. I embody that, or I try to embody that every single day. So no matter what I'm going through, I always try to show up for myself first, and then I'm able to show up for others.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And establishing that kind of self-care is rough, especially as a Black man. And how did you this is a really open question, how did you discover yourself like that? I know that you do lots of self-reflection, but what kind of inspired that? Have you always just naturally been a really insightful person, or did experiences and life just kind of encourage you or force you to have to look into yourself and kind of heal within?
Honestly, I don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
I've been told, and I don't accept it, but a lot of people say I'm very wise for my age. And I think I just try to see things from all perspectives. So it's
Thanks for perspectives.
right. So I just try to look at every situation and every situation at every single perspective. Like literally see, okay, if I was doing this, how could they look at it?
Yeah.
How would they look at it?
Yeah.
How would they look at it? How do I look at it? And then from that, I can get a general understanding of, okay, this is how this situation is perceived by any certain individual. But if you can, I'm going off tangent.
No, but you're right though, and I'm sitting
Yeah.
here encouraging you to go off on that tangent, because you are right. Being able to look at things from different perspectives and to be able to consider others with
Right.
your actions makes the difference of a lifetime.
Right.
And in our final segment, we're just going to pick back up on that, on your positive character, the impact that you want to have on the local communities, and how we can support you and support Covenant. And I encourage viewers to tune into our final segment of Perspectives, where I'll be joined with Tyrese Hobbs to discuss living in your light and the Covenant Apparel. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I'm joined this morning by Tyrese Hobbs, owner of the Covenant Apparel, to discuss living in your life and his brand, the Covenant Apparel. In our first two segments, we discussed his background in education, his upbringing, and the different experiences that molded him as both a young African-American male and as a businessman. And so thank you again for joining me this morning and for sharing that perspective. And just to roll off the momentum that we've already built this morning, I want to hop into your life as a businessman. We've discussed your life before Covenant, and we discussed what led to Covenant, but I want to talk about some of the things that you faced, both positive or negative, as a businessman, as trying to create this business, as you had Covenant the last 3 years about.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that.
All right, so mentioned this earlier, but in 2020, in the middle of COVID, actually, I started Covenant Apparel, and that was a challenge itself, because the route that I did go, which was drop shipping. And for those not familiar, drop shipping is essentially like it's made to order. So once somebody places an order, then the product is made and then it ships. So with that and COVID new regulations and laws, people couldn't be within a certain amount of feet between each other. And like in warehouses, that changes everything. So people that place orders in July didn't get their stuff to October. And not only did that put a bad taste probably in their mouth, but it put one in mine because I didn't have any control over it.
Yeah.
So with that, I would say that's like one of my biggest, to this day, one of my biggest challenges that I've had to face with the brand, because first impressions are everything. And
Oh, yeah.
for me, that was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
So I took a step back. I didn't drop any clothes for going on, I want to say 2 years. It was 2 years. Yeah, because I released last year in 2022. So, but in the interim, I did a motivational journal. Going back to that, it's not just a clothing brand. So that motivational journal consisted of 60 plus questions and quotes that I've handpicked and organized in a specific manner. So that way, if you actually paid attention, it kind of tells a story, which a lot of people don't know. But I created that. Came from God, I guess, the idea, and it was just pretty cool to create a journal like that. So I sold those for probably about 6 or 7 months, and then I took a break. I established my LLC and established my business on a legal standpoint, and now I've been kind of donating those journals. And while I was doing those, I was also building up for my first collection, which was the Dreamer collection. So that was within itself a lot of challenges. I see what that process looks like now. So taking a step back from just throwing a logo on a t-shirt, now I'm actually getting into designing and cut and sew. Like I draw everything first. Just trying to break into every avenue that I possibly can.
Yeah.
So with that first collection, I would say it was a success. I learned a lot, and now I'm working on my second collection.
And you've actually kind of answered a question that was already in my head. I wanted to talk about the lifestyle part of Covenant. I know that beyond clothing, you have motivational quotes, you have journals, but tell me more about some of the resources that you offer in the lifestyle brand. I'm trying not to give too much away, I know, because I've actually been fortunate enough to see firsthand how you run. You know, you send out different messages in the mornings, your different positivities, you discuss colorways. And so tell me just what made you want to do that, as aside from you wanting to be a business owner and aside from these dreams, how do you mesh a clothing brand and a lifestyle brand?
Right. So I would say that the Covenant Apparel isn't the Covenant Apparel without motivation, fashion, and community. So those are the three pillars that I try to focus on. So on our social media platforms, we do Motivation Mondays every Monday. The only time I have personally take a break, which is also a downfall of mine. But last year I lost my dad. So with that, like I lost motivation to do anything. And it kind of really took a toll, but it allowed me to revamp Motivation Mondays in a better way and like be the face of the brand. So at first, like I was just typing them out and then posting it like a flyer. And don't get me wrong, like they got a lot of good receiving and stuff like that. But now, like I'm in front of a camera, talking to the camera, sharing motivation, and I would say that that's even better. I feel like a lot of people really gravitate towards it. So to answer your question, to make it a lifestyle, it's about building that community and making people want to be a part of something positive. You know, a lot of people die with our dreams inside of us, like our imagination. I would say, I actually just did a case study on this, where I feel like the U.S. system really strips that creative gene from children as we continue to rank through the education system. So I'm trying to use Covenant as a way to bring that imagination back out. You know, go for your dreams. No dream is too big, you know, like dream big. And one key movie that I'm gonna mention is Shark Boy and Lava Girl. If you should go see it, go watch it again as an adult and you're gonna get a completely different perspective. It's like insane.
Now tell me about that. I'm genuinely really interested. What is Shark Boy and Lava Girl giving people?
Like it's like these children like movies back in the day, like they're powerful, and I went back and watched it, and it kind of fueled the Dreamer collection, like literally like dreamers. Like Max, the main character, he was a daydreamer, but he didn't realize that. And the only way you become a dreamer is learning how to dream with a daydreamer is learning how to dream with your eyes open. So when you're able to dream with your eyes open, you don't only dream while you're asleep. And if you're able to do that on a daily basis, then you're living in your dream.
Oh my goodness.
So if you go like watch the movie, you're gonna see how he comes into that realization. And now I see that in myself, and I'm trying to live that and make that my reality. So if I can do it, other people can do it. So I'm really just trying to push that and build that community around that, because a lot of people don't have that support.
You're right.
But if you have a community that's trying to do the same thing, like-minded individuals, you become a powerful community that's has each other's back.
Unbreakable.
Right.
A covenant, basically.
Right.
And I just want to thank you for explaining Shark Boy and Lava Girl like that. You are the only person to explain a children's movie in depth like that, and it actually makes sense, and I'm encouraged to go watch the movie now. But in seriousness, how can the community support you? Aside from, just buying clothes or following you, what can others do to support both your mission and the Covenant brand as a whole?
I would say just continue to be yourself, surround yourself with people that are doing what it is that you want to do. I would say that's one of the biggest things. A lot of times we try to elevate ourselves, but keep the same circles. You can't get outside of that circle if you don't put yourself in new areas and new experiences. So the community can support, the Covenant Apparel, as the Covenant intends to support the community, is, providing just continuous support. Actually, like it's just simple. Maybe just showing up for yourself. Like that just means the world to me. You showing up for yourself on a daily basis. Even when you get down, you may go to the Covenant page and read up some motivation or listen to something. Just don't let yourself sit in the funk too long. It's okay to not be okay, but you can't let yourself reside in that.
And you're right. And I especially like it's okay not to be okay, because
Right.
a lot of people don't understand that, as simple as it may sound. And Ty, I want you to plug some of your social medias and your website in this last minute that we have. And so just tell us how they can actually find you. I know there's like the covenantapp.com.
Right.
Tell me like your Instagrams. Tell me some of those things.
Okay. So before I do that, I actually want to add this,
Yeah.
because it's big. And this year I had my first mental health event, which was held at Shelby Park, and it was essentially just to create more awareness and provide resources and create more awareness and knowledge about mental health. So we had a guest speaker, which happened to be me.
And that's awesome. And I'm glad that you have that visibility to where people can see you and be able to contact you. And I think that even goes further than social media, because you're actually on the ground.
Right.
And Ty, I want to thank you so much for joining me this morning and for sharing what you shared this morning. The inspirational words and overall your intent behind the Covenant is amazing. And I know that our viewers will especially appreciate that. And to our viewers, thank you again for joining me one more morning to share a perspective. Good morning.